Fantastic. I'm not able to see the chat. So, oh, actually I am able to see the chat, but as I go along and if there's, any questions or whatever, please feel free. I'm excited to meet you all virtually and share some resources, some tips, and just kind of overall support as your STEM majors and really pursuing whatever it is you're interested in pursuing. So before we kind of get started, you heard the little introduction, but I'd like to share with you my professional profile, right? So if you were to go on, say, LinkedIn, this is what you'd see. You'd see that I went to San Francisco State University, where I got both my degrees. You'd see that I worked at Skyline College, running the MESA program there at Skyline, which is where I met Christine. You'd see that I worked at the statewide office. Then you'd see I came to UC Berkeley to work with transfer students. Then you'd see that I started REUFinder. So that's what you would kind of see if you looked at my LinkedIn profile. What you wouldn't see is what I call the true Hollywood story. So what you would not see is that at San Francisco State, I was a first-generation college student. I was also a student parent, and I had major imposter syndrome because I was also working. So I would kind of go to school and leave and go to work and pick up my daughter. It's kind of ironic that I'm doing a workshop on office hours because I was petrified of office hours. So I think on one hand, I can really relate if that's something that you're going through. And then on the other hand, I also see the importance of office hours. What you might not also see is that I'm a first generation professional, which means that if you are a first generation college student and you graduate and you kind of get your dream career, there's a whole other element of new things to navigate. And so as a first generation professional, again, these are, this kinds of words of wisdom that you like to impart to others. My background is actually in sociology, which is, I like to call myself a sociologist in a sea of STEM folks. I also, since I've been working with engineers and STEM people for so long, I kind of call myself an engineer by osmosis. And I know a thing or two about transfer students, which is why when I came to Berkeley, I created the T-Prep program for transfer students. So hopefully some of you will decide to come to Cal. And if you do decide to come to Cal, we'd love to have you in the T-Prep program. Like I said, it's very similar to MESA, it's just called something else. But when I decided to create REUFinder, I feel like that was my imposter syndrome no more. It was, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, share the knowledge and expertise that I have and not worry, and just kind of, just do it, right? I knew nothing about starting my own business. I'm not a programmer, I'm a sociologist, right? But doing that was quite an experience. And I think as you pursue things, knowing experience and knowledge and kind of things that you have through experience, I think is very important. So, that not to sound cliche, but as they say, it's not the destination, it's the journey. It truly is. So if you visit REUFinder, some of the things that you'll find, advice on scholarships, REUs, and conferences. We are in conference season. I took a quick look at the number of students that have registered. So some of you indicated that you are bio students, engineering students, chemistry students, math students. So you might be familiar with some of the conferences that happen in the fall semester, things like SOCNAS, things like ABRCAMS, things like SHIP. Those are conferences that I really would encourage you to participate in, and there is funding for those as well. In addition, there are a lot of scholarships specifically for students from all STEM disciplines. And anytime that you see a scholarship and it says deadline extended, that tells you that they haven't gotten a lot of applications. So if you see that, absolutely apply, but you should apply regardless. And the reason why I'm mentioning scholarships and REUs and conference funding is because it's really tied into what we're going to talk about today, which is utilizing office hours. One quick plug, if you are interested in learning Python coding language, even if you have zero coding background, there is a boot camp that might be of interest. It's put on by Cal Nerds, which is an amazing program that is run by Dr. Diana Lizarraga, and she was a community college transfer student herself. She was a transfer student. She is running this program, amazing program, Cal Nerds, that works with students in STEM. And this is 100% free, and it is on Zoom. I will share the link with Christine. So if you decide to participate, the upcoming series will be October 8th and October 9th. You can do it from the comfort of your home, and you don't need any Zoom, or you don't need any Python background or any coding background. And I believe that most of your majors that I looked at, a lot of you would very likely want to learn some coding for sure. But Python seems to be a pretty universal code. So it would be interesting. And it is 100% and completely free. As I'm going, you might notice that we tend to speak in a lot of acronyms. So if there's an acronym that I use and I don't, explain what it is, please feel free in the chat to, say, what does that mean? Or what do you mean by that? Can you clarify? So I'm going to try and monitor the chat as much as possible, but please feel free if you have any questions at all to don't be shy, right? Okay, so we are here to talk today about office hours. So in the chat, what comes to mind when you think about office hours? What's the very first thing that comes to mind? You think, you see it on the syllabus and you see office hours. What's the first thing that comes to mind? You can just put it in the chat. One-on-one with the professor. Okay. What else? So that's absolutely one-on-one with the professor. I believe everyone here is at a community college. Is that correct? Do we have any university folks here? I think for the most part. Okay. So one-on-one with the professor. That's absolutely right. There are some myths about office hours, and I want to really kind of clear up those myths because, as I mentioned earlier, when I was in school, I didn't use office hours, as much as I could have, and partly because of a lot of these myths. So we're going to quickly kind of go over these myths. And, perhaps these are things that you have experienced when you think of office hours. I think the number one myth that students will think is if they go to office hours and they ask questions, that the professor might think that they don't understand the material. So if you go to the office hours, then you might give the impression that your professor will think that you don't understand the material. Does anyone, you can either type it in the chat, do a thumbs up. Does anyone have that view or opinion or belief that if you go to office hours, that your professor will think that you don't know what you're doing? Does anyone have that? You can put it, like I said, you can do the thumbs up, you can put yes. Okay, wrong. If you go to office hours, it can demonstrate your understanding. So if you go to office hours, it can demonstrate your understanding. So maybe you're doing very well in the class. Maybe you're doing great in the class. You still should go to office hours. It's not going to, they're not going to think, oh, what are they doing here? Why are they here, right? If anything, it actually demonstrates your understanding of the material. And if you are requesting letters of recommendation, how can they write you a letter of recommendation if you don't go to their office hours, right? So I want to dispel that myth. You can call me the REUFinder and the myth buster, because that is a myth. That you, if you decide not to go to office hours simply because you think that the professor will, think that you don't understand, I'm debunking that myth right now. That is not true. Another one, I'm too busy. I just don't have the time. As I mentioned, I was a student that was working, going to school, commuting. I had a daughter. I thought I don't have time. What I didn't realize, okay, is we all have time. And if we don't have time, you have to make time. I think as a first generation college student, sometimes we assume that office hours are optional. What we don't sometimes realize is that office hours are not optional. They're actually part of the class, but it's not as inherent if you perhaps are a student that's commuting, if no one in your family attended college, if you're thinking, oh, well, my professor doesn't, really mention the office hours, it's kind of hidden in the syllabus, right? It is absolutely, positively 100% part of the class. And so as such, every single one of your classes, when you build out your schedule, you should incorporate that in your schedule. Much like, I'll give you an example, and you can put a thumbs up or you can put it in the chat. How many of you all work? How many of you are working and going to school? Okay, so it looks like Moises is working and going to school. Okay, so Moises, what time do you typically start work on an average day? And Aurora was working too. Okay, Moises and Aurora, what time do you typically start work on an average day?
Like 10.
10 a.m.?
Yeah.
Okay, and Moises 5, could be 5, 5 p.m. Okay, so 5 p.m. Okay, so you know that work does not start like the second, the clock hits 5 or the clock hits 10. There's actually travel time, right? You build that in your schedule. You say, okay, I'm going to take the bus, or okay, I'm going to drive. I got to look for parking. I have to get ready, right? You build that into your schedule. Think of it the same with the office hours. You have to build it into your schedule, right? So get that in your mindset that like office hours have to build in time. The third one, if I attend office hours, then all of my classmates will see me and think that I'm not doing well, even though I might be getting an A. We have many times this assumption that only people that go to office hours are those people that are not doing well. Again, you guessed it, that is wrong. Your professor knows whether or not you are doing well or not. And to be perfectly frank, that's the only person that needs to know. Your classmates, it's none of their business, honestly. They don't need to know your grades. You don't need to know their grades, right? Like, it's really nobody's business. However, your professor knows, so if you're worried, like, oh, if I go, people are going to think I don't know what I'm doing, I'm embarrassed. First of all, who cares? But secondly, your professor knows. They know your grades, right? Your professor knows how you're doing in a class. But if you're not going to office hours, they probably don't know you. Some of your professors might hold office hours in your STEM center, in your MESA center. Do you know if they do? If they hold office hours in those spaces? Lots of professors typically do. Some of the professors might have office hours in the STEM center, in the MESA center, where you can meet with them. So it's not just their office hours that are set for that class, but they might have classes, that designated times for students in those classes. So again, can't stress this enough, that your professors know how you're doing. So if you're worried that, oh, people are going to think that I'm not doing well, don't worry about that. And then the last one, if I go to office hours, I'm going to feel angry, anxious, defensive, nervous, or shy. Is that true for anybody? If you go to office hours, you're going to just get, frustrated. The material's hard. You're going to get anxious. You're not going to, you're not going to feel comfortable talking to your professor, right? And it's going to cause anxiety. And so what's the best way to deal with that? Just not go and just get an A in the class. Just do well in the class, but not go to professor's office hours. That's another myth. Well, that's why we're here, to talk about this. So I'm possibly assuming that some of you on here, are a little bit on the shy side, right? Maybe that's what spoke to you and why you're here. Maybe not. Maybe you're just here to check it out. But we're here to talk today about shyness and to talk about office hours and how that could affect your participation in office hours and whether or not you attend office hours. So let's talk about shyness. Believe it or not, and people say, no way, there's no way that you were shy. I was very shy. I was extremely shy. But when I look back, the reason why I was very shy in college and in jobs that I had was because I wasn't comfortable and I wasn't confident. So when you're in a space that maybe is unfamiliar, when you are not confident about something, when you're just kind of learning and you don't feel confident enough to take risks, that's oftentimes when shyness takes place. Now, we're not talking about people that are introverted. I know sometimes people use those terms, interchangeably. So just to clarify, people that are more introverted, that's that they get their energy from kind of being on their own and being alone. That's how they kind of recharge, is through being by themselves. And then there are some people that are more extroverted. They get energy from being around people. Completely different thing, because you could be a very shy person and also be extroverted. You could be a very not shy person and be very introverted. So it's one, they're not one and the same. So I just want to clarify that. Did you know that shyness is actually a superpower? Did you know this? And I am a sociologist, but I have done a little bit of research for you today in preparation, and shyness is actually a superpower. What do I mean by that? People that are shy tend to be more approachable. So if you are someone who is shy, right? And maybe you're like, why are people coming to me and asking me for help? Or why are people asking me about things? Or, it's probably because you seem more approachable. So that is a superpower, believe me. There are a lot of people who, perhaps in your, future careers, right? And you feel free to type in the chat what your future careers are, what your dream jobs are. I would love to hear that. And if you don't know, it's fine. But maybe like, what's your dream job? You can just put it in the chat, or you can, speak it, whatever works for you. But people that are shy tend to be seen as more approachable. Okay, software engineer. Okay, beautiful. Deliberative. So what do I mean by that? People that are more deliberative, these are people that they don't just jump and make a decision. They like to deliberate. They like to get all the facts before making a decision. Now, if you've done the Myers-Briggs assessment, which is actually quite interesting, you might find that, if you're familiar with that test, that's something in terms of decision making. Now, just looking at Kevin, who said he's interested in being a software engineer, if he is someone who is approachable and if he's someone who's deliberative, that would probably make him a fantastic software engineer, right? People that are, creating things, and all of you as scientists and engineers, you're creating things, and you want people to be able to work with people, and you want to obviously be very, very cautious as you create things, because these are things that the goal is to, engineers and scientists solve problems, not create problems, right? So being deliberative is not a bad thing. It's actually quite a good thing. Cautious. Risks. Any civil engineers on here? Any civil or mechanical engineers? You all are trained. You take classes on risk analysis, right? You're trained to do that. If you're a shy person, just kind of comes natural, right? So maybe you might be kind of risk aversive, right? That's something, again, with the shyness. And feel free, like I said, I'm a sociologist. I'm very nosy. I want to know what you all are interested in majoring in, or your dream job. Calming. People that are shy tend to be seen as calming. So do we have any pre-med folks on here? I know that if I were seeing a doctor or a dentist or a pharmacist, or anyone in those fields, it would be very nice to have someone who is calming, right? Professor, maybe someone who is mechatronics engineering. Awesome. So there you go. You're going to have to take classes, on controls. You're going to have to take classes, probably, you're kind of trained as a mechanical engineer, like I said, with the risks, right? So calming. So these are all things that, as folks that are more on the shyer side, tend to exhibit. And last but not least, people that are shy tend to have deeper friendships. So rather than, maybe having, 50 friends that are kind of associates, acquaintances, people that people that are on the shyer side tend to have fewer friends, but it is quality over quantity, deep, lifelong friendships that last. And I think for somebody who is shy, for you to call someone a friend, that is a huge compliment, because it means that you truly value their friendship and they're very lucky to have you, in that circle and to be friends. So you all are awesome and amazing, and you are superheroes, right? You have a superpower, which is shyness. However, as the superhero, every superhero has their kryptonite, right? So every superhero, you're amazing and you're awesome. However, every superhero has their kryptonite. Any comic book fans on here? A lot of my students tend to like comic books, especially the engineers, right? A lot of students will say, oh, I started, getting into comics when I was younger. And, my dream is to, to be like Iron Man, right? I think a lot of engineers, right, are interested, which is cool. I'm not really into comic books, but I actually appreciate them a lot, because they give us, scientists and engineers. So that's a cool thing. So as someone who is shy, the kryptonite is not fatal, but the shyness means that you have the possibility of potentially being ignored, right? If you, kind of don't put yourself out there, it is very well possible that you will be passed up for opportunities that you're working very hard for. You might also appear aloof, like you don't care, right? So maybe you go to an event that you're really excited about and you're kind of withdrawn and you kind of don't really interact. People are going to think you're either disinterested or you're kind of over it, right? And really, when inside, you might be actually quite excited about it. So we have mechatronics and software engineer on the call today. Are either of you interested in working at Tesla? Would Tesla be a company that you were interested in working at? Of course. Okay. So let's say that Tesla comes to your campus, or maybe you go to a conference and you happen to be on the elevator and you see somebody from Tesla on the name badge, and you're excited and they kind of make eye contact with you, or you kind of see that they kind of initiate a conversation, but then you're like, oh, this is intimidating. I don't really want to talk to them. So you ignore them. That's a missed opportunity, right? In the sense of office hours, out of sight means out of mind, right? So I often, will tell students about opportunities, scholarship opportunities, REU opportunities, things that they can pursue. If a student, comes in all the time, makes appointments with me, sends me emails, right? If they kind of take that initiative, they will immediately come to my mind. But if they don't, right? Maybe they don't have a LinkedIn. Maybe they don't email me. Maybe they just kind of sit in the back, right? I'm probably not going to think of them as much. And so I really want you to take this into heart, because you're all working very hard, right? You're doing some really hard majors. You're working very hard, but I don't want you to be passed up because you weren't seen as present, even though you are, even though you're like working really hard. If you're, not being actively engaged, you might be passed up for an opportunity. We don't want that. I will say the fact that you're all here though, I think that you do want to kind of get out of your shell, and that's actually fantastic. And that's why I'm here to help with that. So we want to get you from out of sight to at a sight. I don't know if people really use that expression much anymore, but I thought it was kind of cute, right? So somebody who's out of sight, that's somebody who sits in the back. That's somebody who doesn't really come to office hours. And that's someone who doesn't appear to be terribly engaged. However, someone who is at a sight, that's somebody who sits in the front. That's somebody who goes to office hours. And that is somebody who is super, super, super engaged. What I always do on the first day of school with my prep and T-prep students is I play a joke on them, right? I play a joke and I tell them that I have free concert tickets, right? And they're like really excited, like, oh, where do you want to sit at the concert? And they say, of course, the front row, right? And then, of course, it turns out I don't have concert tickets, but they do remember that sitting in front and being in the line of sight of your professors, or whomever you're interacting with, if it's a lecture or any kind of setting, that gives the appearance that you are being engaged. So we want to get you from out of sight to at a sight. At a sight's kind of an older expression, and it basically means that you're doing fantastic, and you are all doing fantastic. But we just want to make sure that people know how fantastic you're doing. So why do you need to go to office hours anyways, right? Maybe you're like, I am doing so well. I get A's on all the homework. I get A's in all my labs. Like, I'm doing really well. Why do I need to go to office hours? Doesn't really, I don't need office hours, right? Well, letters of recommendation. Grades alone will not give you strong letters of recommendation. Transcripts will show the grades, right? And so anytime you apply, whether it's for a scholarship, an internship, maybe a REU program, maybe you're applying to a private school that, that requires letters of recommendations. Anyone interested in grad school? I know a lot of community college transfer students who have aspirations to go to graduate school. And I know a lot of programs that actually want students to go to grad school. So much so that we actually have a National Science Foundation scholarship specifically for community college students who want to go to graduate school. So same thing. If you want to go to grad school, you're going to have letters of recommendation. And in order to get letters of recommendation, you have to go to office hours, right? So once again, the grades are definitely not enough. What do you get in office hours? I would say, aside from help in your classes, you get wisdom from your professors. Some of your professors might be doing research. I know at SOCNUS, I have seen a number of students at community colleges do research. I think more and more programs are providing research for their students at the community college. And so if that's an option, and it could be anything from, we're going to do research in a microbiology lab to I'm going to do an independent research project with my professor. If you have an honors program, certainly honors classes will sometimes facilitate those opportunities, but not going to office hours is going to be detrimental to your pursuit of those things because you won't have those connections. A fun fact, your professors were also students. They took those classes too. So I'm assuming, I only heard from 2 students what their majors are, but I'm pretty sure that you're taking calculus, maybe calculus with geometry, kind of engineering calculus, maybe you're taking applied calculus, maybe you're taking chemistry, maybe you're taking organic chemistry, maybe you're taking CS, maybe you're taking physics, maybe you're taking differential equations, maybe you're taking algebra, linear algebra. Guess what? Your teachers, they took those classes too. They have their own experience in those classes. It is not terrible for you to ask them about their experience. In addition, they also, if you tell them what you're interested in, it's very, very likely. And then maybe you're doing great. Maybe you're like doing really, really good in the class. They might say, hey, do you want to be a teaching assistant? Or do you want to be a lab assistant? Or would you like to tutor? Or, hey, I actually have a student who's really struggling. And, you seem like you're an approachable person, right? You seem like a person that would be great as a resource for them, right? So remember that. Remember, at some point, all of your professors were just like you. They were taking classes too. And so really, I think humanizing them and really, looking at it from that perspective will really, really help as you talk to professors and as you talk to them. Oh, this is a good question. Could all of those opportunities go down on our resume? Absolutely. In addition, it wouldn't be horrible if you brought your resume. And I would say bring your resume for a number of reasons. One is if you talk to your professor, depending on the class, maybe there's an opportunity for you to do research with them. Maybe they need somebody to help with tutoring. Maybe, the Mesa Center's hiring, right? Maybe, there's a host of opportunities, but yes, all of those opportunities should go on your resume. And if you, for example, tutor somebody, you should put this on your resume. I think you're all great and very nice, but you should also credit where credit is due, right? And so if you're doing something like tutoring or volunteer, put that on your resume. I like to think of faculty as the bridge to you and your dream. And when I say faculty, I also mean counselors and staff and anybody who's there to help you. They're the bridge to your dream. They're the bridge to your major because they know people that have pursued the same major. They are the bridge to your dream job because I bet you that they know people who have transferred from whatever your school that you're at that have worked in the jobs that you want. They know they've done this a while. They've had students, and guess what? A lot of these students will keep in contact and come back. I'm pretty sure that all of you, no matter how shy you are, I'm pretty sure that all of you, once you transfer, you will want to come back and you will want to talk to other students, right? And that goes the same, especially with community college students. I think it's very, very common for students to really want to give back and really want to, kind of lend a hand and reach out. And so having those networks, you can get those networks from your professors, from staff and from people, that you visit in office hours. Dream University. Maybe there's somebody who was in that, differential equations class that, transferred to your dream school, right? Maybe your dream school is Caltech. And maybe there's a student who happened to go to Caltech and your professor says, oh, I had a student, a year ago and they transferred from, Ventura College to Caltech. Let me put you in touch with them, right? Scholarships, again, you're going to need letters of recommendation. Tutoring positions. If you want a tutoring position, sometimes they will ask for, letters of recommendation or references or things like that. So that's a good one. Study partners, again, maybe you're really struggling in the class, and maybe they can connect you with somebody who can help. So these are all the bridge, but again, they can't help you if you don't utilize them. Extracurricular activities. So a lot of faculty tend to be advisors to student clubs. So maybe, is anyone, I'm pretty sure that we have a CS person and we have a mechatronics person. I'm pretty sure that both of you are interested in robotics. Is that correct? I think that's a pretty safe assumption. Definitely the mechatronics person, right? What other things are you interested in besides that? The reason why I'm asking is because maybe there's something that you're really interested in doing and you want to start a club or you want to start a team, right? Oftentimes you will need a faculty advisor. And so if you need a faculty advisor, this would be a great way. I knew of a student who got involved in a campus committee specifically because he went to office hours and his professor was looking for students. I also knew a student who got selected for a study abroad experience specifically because the professor wanted students from other majors to participate. Okay, so we have Aurora says, not sure, probably not, maybe web development, cybersecurity, data science, video game programming. There's also a lot of competitions and hackathons that you can, oh, that's great. Your professor is actually the advisor to your school. Yeah, that's very common. So having to the computer science club. So that's actually very common. So is anyone involved in SHIP? SHIP is the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. I'd be very surprised if your schools didn't have SHIP chapters. I believe Alan Hancock has a very, very active SOCNIS chapter, and there's probably a faculty advisor for that. So getting to know those individuals are very important because they can really connect you to those opportunities. Maybe you're involved in student government. Maybe you've been involved in student government since high school. Maybe you're involved in a competition team. Maybe you want to get involved in a competition team. Again, those faculty are going to connect you to those resources and opportunities. So, have I convinced you to use office hours? Maybe sort of. You could just do the thumbs up, or you can type it in the chat, either way. So if I have convinced you, and I hope that I have, now I'm going to tell you how to use office hours, right? So I've kind of, pitched the importance of office hours, but I wouldn't be doing a good job if I didn't give you tips on how to utilize those office hours. Knowing specifically that you might be on the shyer side, and it is a little bit scary, but again, you see all the benefits, and the benefits of utilizing office hours outweigh any nervousness or anxiety that you might have. So how do you do? What do you do? Do your homework. And when I say do your homework, I mean your other homework. Make sure you know who you're talking to. So before you take your time to visit your instructor in the office, make sure you check out their webpage. Do some research on who they are. Maybe your goal is to transfer to UC San Diego. Anyone want to go to UC San Diego? Or UCLA? UC Berkeley? It's one of my choices. Okay, UC Berkeley. Okay, maybe your professor went to UC Berkeley. look on their webpage, see where they went to college. Maybe they did their, their undergraduate degree at one school, their graduate degree at another school. What a great resource. Firsthand, somebody who went to that school where you can talk to them about their experience, but you won't know that unless you go to their webpage. Maybe they are involved in something that you're interested in, right? Maybe you have some common thread. Professors are people too, right? They have personalities. I think that I personally love when a professor talks about things that they're interested in beyond simply, the class they teach. Maybe they're heavily involved in music, right? And that's very common. I've seen a lot of, especially STEM people. I've seen a lot of STEM people that are really, really musicians, right? They're really involved in music. Maybe you've been playing guitar for 11 years, right? And maybe your professor, maybe he or she plays the guitar, right? What a great way to break the ice, right? So if you have something that's in common, right? Maybe you're from the same town. I mean, it could be anything, but that's a really good way to kind of build that bridge and to connect with them. But you won't know that unless you do a little bit of digging and, look at their web pages and kind of, see who they are. Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Be you. Introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? Right? Be confident. Maybe it's a class that you need because you want to transfer. Maybe it's a class you're taking, a GE class just for fun, right? Maybe you are taking a visual art class for a GE and you're a civil engineering major. Maybe you're taking a photography class, right? So I think the cool thing is that professors love when somebody who is in their class is maybe from a different major. I had a student one time who was taking a seminar that I run. They were actually an econ major. And it was really cool because I had students doing a project on fintech, right? And he happened to be an econ major. And I said, oh my gosh, this is so cool because you actually bring something to the table that, the rest of us in the class, the students were engineers, and you have this expertise being an econ major. So you always bring something to the table, even if the class, is not, what you're going to be taking more classes. It's great to know that you are expanding your intellectual horizons by taking that class. And I think also, again, building those connections are very, very important. So being confident with introducing yourself. I don't know if you're all familiar with the term, the elevator pitch, right? Just, kind of who you are, where you're from, what you're majoring in, what are your plans, and talking to your professor about those things. I think they would love that. I think they would love to know who you are. Maybe on Canvas, they might ask you that. I'm assuming you all use Canvas, they might ask you that, and you might write that in the discussions, but nothing beats that in-person connection, right? So seize that opportunity. Write down your questions ahead of time. So anytime, and this is just a really good general rule, be very strategic about why you're there. Even if it's just to say, I'm really enjoying this class. I'm going to pick on our mechatronic engineer. Maybe you're taking physics, right? And maybe you love physics. Maybe you really like physics. Maybe you're doing fantastic in physics. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you being strategic, going in and saying, I'm really enjoying this class. I really like the format. I really like, this topic. I really like this project, and just giving feedback. There's nothing wrong with that, but be strategic why you're there. If you have a question about a specific problem, I would recommend that you're detailed, right? You don't want to just go in and say, yeah, I don't understand this. It doesn't make any sense. Be very strategic about that. If you want to ask for help, office hours is a great way, or just to connect with the professor, it's a great way as well. If you are nervous, if you go in and you're like, okay, I've got my questions and they're written down, and the time comes and you go and you completely freeze, there is absolutely nothing wrong with saying, I'm actually really nervous. Being vulnerable, being approachable, being genuine, and being yourself, that is very admirable. So if it turns out that you go and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't, I'm really nervous, I'm experiencing anxiety, I'm really nervous about this, just break down that wall and be genuine and be honest. You never know. You might actually find that your professor says, I had the same problem when I was in school, right? I'm telling you, I don't think there's ever a situation where somebody regrets being who they truly are. So I think that that's just good advice, just in general, for office hours, for interviews, for anything. Communication is key. So sometimes when we talk to professors, if you say, I need to get an A in order to transfer, and maybe that's true, what they might hear is, I'm not really interested in this class because I need it. I don't really care about the material, right? So you want to just be very careful, right? So maybe you do need class, in order to transfer. Maybe you're taking that GE class, because it fit your schedule, right? Maybe it did fit your schedule and that's the only reason. I wouldn't necessarily say that because they might hear that, you're not really interested in the class. And if you think about it, I think they would probably be very, very sensitive about that. I mean, because if you think about it, like all of the work and all of the time and all of the care that they put into the, the syllabus and the lectures and their classes, you really want to be, mindful of that, right? They put in a lot of work behind that. So maybe there's probably a better way to rephrase that. If you come in and say, I'm completely lost, I don't know what's going on, that might translate into, you're not a very good teacher, right? Even though that's not what you mean. But instead of saying, I'm completely lost, I don't know what I'm doing, you might, as you talk specifically, right? Well, here's what I had issues with. I was trying to do the homework and here's where I keep getting stuck, right? And being very specific. And lastly, and I actually had somebody do this to me the other day, which was kind of interesting. They said, I wasn't in class on Monday. Did I miss anything important? Right. And I heard, I was just trying to get through your course and your lectures aren't that great. Right. So that was me with my imposter syndrome, like thinking like, oh, great. Like, the person's thinking, what trivial info did you cover? Right. So again, I don't think the student meant that, but that's kind of, sometimes the impact, even though it's absolutely not the intent, but sometimes that can be the impact. So what you might say is, and actually, maybe you weren't in class because, you were sick or whatever. I would, if you're going to like not be in class, obviously communicate ahead of time, or if you were sick or something like that. But you definitely don't want to give that idea that the class is just an afterthought. During the meeting, when you do go and visit your office hours, take notes with them, because you might be nervous and you might kind of forget what you talked about. If they tell you to follow up with an email, then follow up with an email. Be professional, be respectful, make sure you have your phone on silent. I know this sounds kind of funny, but I've had it happen to me. Don't eat or sit or lay on the floor. I know that sounds weird, but I actually have had students do that, which is kind of weird, right? So I had a student come in and they came to talk to me, and they like literally sat on the floor and like had like a full-on like picnic in my office. And yeah, don't do that. That's not a good thing. Don't barge in if the door is closed. I've had that happen as well. I had a student one time who, you know, I was actually, you know, in there, and I was with another student, and the door was closed because the student was, you know, upset about something, and the other student kind of climbed over and looked, you know, so don't do that. Knock first, obviously, right? So you want to make sure, and, you know, even if the light is on and they don't answer, you know, don't be that person who bangs on the door, because you never know, right? They might be in there with somebody else. So you just want to be kind of sensitive about that, and be respectful. You want to be remembered for the right reason, not the wrong reason, right? So communication is always very important, and it also, you know, makes a really good impression. All right, so I know that I covered a lot. I think we have about 4 minutes. So I want to give some opportunity and some time for you all to ask questions. Quiet group, which isn't a horrible thing, but I think that if there are questions you have, this would be a great opportunity. I will definitely send the slides out along with the links, so you can, you know, kind of go through them. I think this goes until 5, if I'm not mistaken. Christine, are we going until 5? I thought we were going until 5.
Yes, Tiffany, we're going till 5 o'clock, and yep, we can just
Okay.
wrap it up.
So if anyone has, I think we have like 3 minutes. And you can also, if you want, you can feel free to add me on LinkedIn or whatever. I post a lot of cool, I mean, I think they're useful stuff on LinkedIn, but while we're here, does anyone have any quick questions, or maybe, okay, Kevin says, so office, yes. Okay, so this is a good question that Kevin has, and I'm going to repeat your question because we're recording it. So Kevin has a great question. Kevin says, so office hours can also be used to mention to your professor that you're interested in research and personal projects they can help you with. Absolutely, yes. Office hours are not just for, you know, I'm stuck on this problem. Like I said, office hours, the bridge, right? The bridge to your major, the bridge to personal projects. Maybe you're working on some, you know, technical project that you know, need help with, or you're stuck on. Absolutely. And I guarantee you, especially with the STEM professors, right? If you're working on something, at the end of the day, I mean, they're STEM folks. They're going to enjoy it. They're going to be interested in it, right? No one's going to say, oh, you know, don't bother me with this cool robotics project you're doing. They're going to say, oh my gosh, let me see this. This looks really cool. So yes, so utilize them. They are professors, they're faculty. That's part of the job. They understand that office hours, they understand letters of recommendation. When you get to the university and you transfer, they're gonna, you know, you can approach them for research. Maybe they'll approach you for research. Yes, I would say if you have a fear of office hours, or you feel a little bit uneasy, conquer that fear at the community college. I know it's hard, but just do it. You know, use these tips. So when you transfer, you will be immediately, like, first day, introducing yourself and, you know, connecting with people. Believe me, it's going to make your experience so much better overall. I think we're at 4:59. I would also like to know a little bit more about the REUFinder that you mentioned at the beginning, and where can I learn more about it? Oh, this is a beautiful segue. So basically, REUFinder.com. You'll see everything on there. I have some articles, I have some resources, I have a whole section specifically for community college students. Although anyone who is a first year or second year, please look at those as well. because those are opportunities that you can do. I have opportunities for undocumented students, for international students. I have opportunities, all GPAs, all levels of experience. So you really have no excuse. There are a lot of opportunities out there. And I try to give you as much information as possible, so you're not, spending time on Google searching for stuff just because I know you're all busy college students. And is learning to code always necessary for engineering majors? That's from Moises. To be honest, yeah, at least one language. Most of the engineers, most of them will, if you look at your schools that you're transferring to, many of them, when you transfer, they will very, very likely, if you're mechanical engineering, if you're computer science, if you're civil engineering, if you're nuclear engineering, if you're aerospace engineering, you will learn coding. Very often you'll learn MATLAB for the non like CS and non-EE folks. The CS folks, yes, you'll learn many languages. And the EE folks, you'll learn many languages. So if you can learn coding independently on your own, it will also make your applications more competitive for transferring. And in addition, many of if we have any bioengineers on here, more and more students, even like your friends that are studying psychology, like I've seen a really huge surge in data science. And so I would not be surprised if in a couple of years that coding is just something that every major, requires a little bit of, because it really is very useful. Any last questions?
Tiffany, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so appreciate your wisdom and expertise. And I know you're doing a couple more for us about choosing your transfer university. And then also there is a workshop that will be in partnership between Tiffany and Cuesta College and Allen Hancock College to help students navigate and work on landing internships with industry and with research opportunities within the universities. So those are all coming up soon.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you, Tiffany.